Hello, I'm Kate Davis, and this is Humor in the C-Suite, a show about how leaders use humor to create an extraordinary work culture. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Humor in the C-Suite. My guest this week is Heather Tolley-Bauer. We had an incredible conversation. She comes from a world of the corporate banking environment to PR, and she is a master communicator. But not only that, now she's a stand-up comedian and keynote speaker. She shares her story, her wisdom. We had so much fun. You guys are going to love her. We had a great laugh and so much insight. So please welcome Heather Tolley-Bauer. Heather, welcome to Humor in the C-Suite. I think we've already started off on a great trajectory. First of all, I just really want to talk to you about your many lives you lived.
Okay.
As many of your hairstyles. Right? Because you have lived such a full life in so many different industries. It's going to be an interesting episode, and I'm so excited. But we always do start off with, do you have a favorite joke?
I have several, because, as a stand-up comedian, I crack myself up on the regular. So I'm not going with one of my jokes.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not going with one of my jokes will come out. I assure you.
Okay, good.
I'm going with the joke that my almost 16-year-old son likes, but won't admit that he likes it.
Okay, go on.
Okay. All right. Okay. Why does Snoop Dogg carry an umbrella?
Why?
For drizzle.
See, that's cute. Come on. I love it. That's so dumb. So good. So good. So dumb. So perfect.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And Snoop Dogg, he's a national treasure here.
He
in
is.
the United States.
My God. He is everywhere. Watching him at the Olympics killed me.
It made me fall in love with him all over again.
He's just, ever since him and Martha hooked up, the unlikely duo, for sure.
It legitimized him, and then it gave her some more street cred.
Yes.
It was, man.
Perfect. Yeah. Although she's the one who served jail time. So, I think she's got a little more street cred.
Goes to show you. It just goes to show you.
You never know.
A good PR firm. A good,
Yes, exactly. Okay, so let's get into it. I thought I would just start off by getting you to tell your story of different industries you've been in, how, and just how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, okay, so it started in 1970 when I was born. No. So my career, my working career was in public relations and business communications. And so I'm a big fan of communicating and communications. And I'm one of those people, I fear death more than public speaking. I'm very weird that way. Very strange that way. But I also geek out on communications. And so I actually believe problems can be solved or created by communications. Good communication solves problems, bad communications creates problems. So I've always been a big fan of communications, worked in the public relations field, was a vice president of a large bank in New England, and was their director of public relations for a long time. And when I left that job, I kind of did some other things, went into PR consulting, and then my family and I got moved to the Atlanta area. I was in Connecticut, so I was in the Northeast, and we got moved to the South. And to be honest with you, I was a little pissed off about it. I don't know. That's a little salty language for a podcast. I know, but
no, you can be salty here. It's not a clean podcast.
Okay. All right.
You're good.
I was a little pissed off about it, and didn't know what I was going to do. My son was going off to kindergarten. My husband is an executive with a big company, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and decided. Now this was 10 years ago, Kate. So 10 years ago, everybody had a blog.
Yes.
Now everybody has a TikTok.
Yes.
But 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, everybody had a blog. And so I was going to just do new things and in this new state and this new part of the country, and I was going to blog about it. And the very first thing I did was took a stand-up comedy class.
I love this.
And never left it. I just never left it.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And you know what? It all like, because just speaking with you and getting to know you a bit, like you have such a great sense of humor and such an energy about you, and it is contagious. So when
Aw.
you were like in your executive phase of your life,
Mhm.
were you drawn to using humor to create, a good work culture, and how did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been drawn to humor anyway. So I was the kid that, you know, was funny, right? I
Yeah.
was the kid that, like my first emceeing gig was when I was with the Girl Scouts. I was in my Girl Scout troop. I was in the 5th grade, and we had a father-daughter dinner of all the Girl Scout troops in my town. And I got to MC the event. That was my first gig.
I love this. How old were you?
10.
Oh my God. Okay. So I had my first bomb as a comedian when I was 8. I swear to God, because I was killing it on the sleepover circuit. Because I was doing Mr. Chinnigan all the time. You know, when you draw the eyes on your chin and the nose and you lie upside down, and then
You were a prop comic.
I
Okay.
was a prop comic. Yeah. And I was really into like SNL and like
Oh, sure.
Handy Dandy, like all of it. I was buying it all. And so I was doing Mr. Chinnigan at all the sleepover schools. I decided to do it for the school talent show. And I went up, I'm like, this is gonna murder. And yeah, died, not a peep, because no one could see it. Everyone was so far away, but I didn't realize it as an 8-year-old. And you know
Yeah.
what? Yeah, still,
You learned a very valuable lesson,
yes, I
right?
did.
Comedy is a multisensory experience,
Yes, it is.
right? You have to be able to see it. You have to be able to hear it.
Yes. I
Yeah.
mean, more so like, especially when you're drawing a picture on your face. I do believe it's definitely a listening sport.
Yes.
And I do believe that empathy and connection come from listening, especially as a
Yeah.
leader.
Right.
So, did you find when you were, in your corporate life before you became a comedian, which I love, I think everyone should try it, by the way,
Yes, I
out
agree.
there. Did you find it was a big part of your leadership style, or were you just like, I got to play this serious?
No, I mean, I was. It's just ingrained in me. It's just part of my personality. It's also part of my coping, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always been somebody who takes what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself very seriously.
Perfect.
And I
Yeah.
think that that is super important in leadership. I also think that you have to use that strategically. You have to use that wisely, right? But
Yeah.
because self-deprecating humor has always been my go-to, but you got to be careful with that, right? Because it is something that in the business world it can level the playing field when you are a manager, but it can make you look like an idiot to potential clients, and so you have to
Right.
kind of know like
Where to play
you
it.
have to know how to play it, how to play that. But yeah, I have preferred. So, when I was a public relations director, there was a lot of interpersonal communication and intrapersonal communication. And so I was having to work with and communicate with um, colleagues, customers, community members, stakeholders. And so I had to adjust my style of communication to be effective, but being funny has always helped with diffusing situations and onboarding people. And now that I am, and now that I am in the corporate communication space where I'm taking my business communications and my stand-up comedy and
Yeah.
kind of mashing them together, doing a big mashup. Now I understand that being a humorous leader and being able to communicate through responsible humor, joke responsibly, people, um, really is a critical business skill. It really is a competitive advantage. I didn't know that that this thing that was just natural to me is actually really sound strategy. I didn't know that until I started to study it. But
Do you find that you can teach that?
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Don't you? I
Yes,
mean,
absolutely.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I find that it makes sense to a lot of people because, and here's why. Well, as you know, we are naturally drawn to the people that make us laugh.
Yeah,
We
absolutely.
want to be around the people who can tell a good story. And when I say laugh, I don't mean like,
Yeah.
Kevin Hart laugh. Like, I'm not talking about rolling in the aisles necessarily. You don't have to be that guy, but I mean, just a chuckle, a smile. And it's so important because what I have found out as I was doing the research is like the amount of times we laugh, like as people,
Yeah.
like dramatically decreases like at the age of
Yes.
23.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is coincidentally exactly at the moment when adulting begins. Like laughter ends, adulting
Adulting
begins.
begins.
And how many people do you and I interact with that are over the age of 23? Most.
Yeah.
So if we can leave them feeling better about themselves, their day, their
Mhm.
experience, having spent time with us than before they spent time with us, then like that's a no brainer.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it can be taught and I think it needs to be taught. I think it's important.
Yeah, no, and it's everywhere now, and especially because everything is so techno now.
Right.
I mean, if you look up the definition of connectivity, it's all computer related. Has nothing to do with human connection
Right.
anymore. So it is interesting. Did you find it help with collaboration and with teams getting along when you
For
were
sure.
in the PR world?
For sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the things. I mean, it strengthens teams, it builds trust, all the things.
Yeah.
I mean, the truth is that laughter, it just works.
Yes. Yeah.
It works. It works personally, professionally, as you're building teams. As you're trying to establish that like, know, and trust with clients,
Yeah.
laughter works. Laughter
Aw.
works.
Laughter works, people. That's the message. That's what we're going with. Do you
Yeah.
find there's a balance between, I mean, you mentioned this already, but really maintaining professionalism and, bringing that humor in and dealing with clients and coworkers differently because you know the coworkers. But I
Right.
can't even imagine how many fires you had to put out as a PR professional.
Yeah, I mean, when you work in corporate PR, you're going to encounter a lot of different people, a lot of different situations, a lot of different personalities,
Yeah.
and a lot of different sensibilities. It's not real different from the salespeople that I have gotten to train. Like salespeople are like, but I'm hilarious,
Yeah.
but maybe not appropriate.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
sometimes, yeah. So yes, laughter. I also tell me. I know you're in Canada,
Yeah.
and I'm not, and it's probably the same. But I encounter with the companies that I work with in this day and age, people are a little afraid of, can I say that? There's a lot of, well, can I say that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Political correctness is definitely on everyone's mind, or as everyone's calling now, woke culture. I think it's just really being a better human
Right.
and being sensitive towards people and their feelings. But I think there's still levity within that. And it can come in a lot of different forms. It can come at the signature of an email, as we've spoken about, or
Which, by the way, go get an email from Kate because her signature is hilarious. You want to get an email from her just for the signature.
Stop. Hi, it's Kate. I can't believe you made it halfway through the show. Look, if you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Humor in the C-Suite, I would love to have you. So email me, kate@katedavis.ca. Did you find when you a huge difference between the PR world and with the banking world?
Yeah, well, yes and no. I mean, banking is pretty stuffy, pretty
Yeah,
straightforward. And so, that environment isn't really a bunch of yucks all the time. It's not a bunch of,
right.
and there was a lot more of just having to be, a more
Yeah.
traditional business communicator, right? Like,
Right.
so there was a lot of that. But then when I left that job and became a PR consultant and got to work with different industries,
Okay.
then I got really exposed to a lot of different cultures and a lot of business cultures and a lot of different sensibilities, and realized that, in comedy, there's this idea that funny is funny.
Yeah.
Yes
Mhm.
and no,
Yeah.
right? You also have to know your audience.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that is when I work with companies and salespeople, it kind of starts there.
Okay.
It
Yeah.
starts with, you have to really know your
Your
audience. And to your
audience.
point, like the comedy that the moments of levity that I am going to share with a coworker
Yeah.
is not the same that I am going to share with a client, a prospective client, my
Yeah.
boss. It's
Right.
just it's not appropriate, and you have to know the difference.
Yeah.
You have to
Did you have any funny bosses that you worked with that sort of inspired you?
well, not funny. Very rarely is anybody as funny as we are. I'm just going to
No,
say.
absolutely.
No, it goes without saying. Okay. Um, Funny. I did. No, but I did have a boss, a really fantastic boss. Her name was Lori. I was just telling the story the other day. She was somebody who really mentored me in a male dominated industry,
Yeah.
at a male dominated company.
Yeah.
And she would never tell me how old she was. To this day, I don't know how old she is, but she was old enough. She was like old enough to mentor me, and she wanted to make sure that I had it easier than she had it
Oh, I love that.
coming up. And I learned a lot from her, and I learned a lot from that. And much like comedy, back in the day, women didn't support women in comedy because we felt like there wasn't enough oxygen for all of us. And my boss, Lori, made me understand that there is enough oxygen. And I have carried that with me throughout. And so she was a riot because she just had such a great personality, and she was funny
Yeah.
without even like trying to be funny. She was just
Yes.
really funny. But the biggest gift that she gave me, and this isn't funny, but
Yeah.
it informed me, it informed how I showed up in life. And this was 20 years ago. She said, "Heather, you have this real gift to say what needs to be said when it needs to be said."
Wow.
And, I think back on that when I was a much younger woman, in the corporate world, where, a lot of people wanted, was like, "Yeah, you're a little much." you know, "You're a little
Yeah.
much, Heather." She was like, "Nope, no, you are not.
No, you're
No,
not.
you are not. You are powerful."
Yes.
And that really gave me the confidence to stand on stage as a 40 something year old woman, because, when I started, it was 10 years
Yeah.
ago, I was 44 years old, complaining about my stay at home mom life. It gave me the confidence to do that because I, I, I sort of came up just realizing that my voice matters and my perspective matters, and somebody out there needs to hear what I have to say.
Yes.
And it all started from her.
Wow, that's amazing. I find a lot of there's definitely I don't want to get like I hate talking about the gender part of it, but it is still there, and it does play a role in the corporate environment, not as much maybe, but I think, a
Yeah.
lot of women do tread differently than a man, especially when it comes to landing jokes or like in that environment.
Well, and I think authenticity wasn't a word 20
No.
years ago, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like in the 2000s. Like, we weren't talking about authenticity.
Yeah.
But now we realize that people who show up authentically
Yeah.
are people that are successful. That they're the people that people want to be led by. I don't like to say that we want to follow them. I don't like that
No,
terminology,
I
but
get that.
they are the people that we want to have as leaders. They are the people that that we gravitate towards, right? And so my boss was a riot, right? But she was also very authentic. And I think more so than was she funny, that's what it was, right?
Yeah. She was herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
And
I
pretty
find,
unapologetic about it.
I see, that's what we got to be. But I find like the work environment, like especially this generation coming up, are demanding that. They're demanding that authentic workplace. They're demanding, kombucha on tap, whatever. I want that. But
It's
they
strong
are.
in Silicon Valley, right? Like
Yeah.
the nap pods and the cereal bars. And then,
Yeah.
it started with, we're going to just take care of your needs and
Yeah.
nurture an environment that is that is
Playful.
positive, playful, and productive.
Yeah.
And then, that went along for a while. And then, somewhere in there, COVID happened. And now, my best friend is Chat GPT. And I'm like, what happens?
Yes. At the beginning of chat, I almost thought like, this is cheating. How dare I? Because as a comic, I take such pride in writing my own
Right.
jokes. And I'm glad Chat GPT can't write jokes.
Cannot write jokes.
No, it cannot.
Cannot
Yeah.
write jokes.
No, absolutely. Thank God. Or, that's when I'd be worried.
Right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Do you have any advice for, people coming up who are in their early careers in the corporate environment and how they can navigate, how to use humor within that or, lead with levity?
Well, so I have a client who is in this space, and I'm helping him like make his TED Talks and things funnier, right? And I know you do that kind of work too. But what I love about doing that work is I get to meet all kinds of people doing all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And his name's Eric McDermott. It's Eric McDermott. Let me say that more clearly. And he made me realize that right now in this time, there are 4 generations of worker.
Wow.
And
Isn't
so our
that-
frame of references are very different.
Yeah.
And what makes us laugh? Shared experiences. But
Yeah.
what I think is funny isn't what my son thinks is funny, right? Because there's a whole bunch of stuff that I have experience with that he knows nothing about.
Right.
So I think that being curious, I don't you just love like in what we do, we get to meet a lot of people and being genuinely curious about other people.
Yeah.
It's far more important to listen to what they have to say,
Yeah.
right? And I am lucky, you and I are lucky because we're of that same age where we have a lot of frame of reference behind us to draw from and then to relate to people. And for the younger people, I would say that you have a lot that you can learn from the generations that have come before you. Don't discount them. And to the, older generation, I would say the same of the younger generation. Listen, when you can't figure out how to get into your Netflix, who are you going to call?
Yeah, and we invented the flares you're wearing today.
Yes,
so
that's right. Oh, you think that romper? You think you invented the romper? No,
yeah,
ma'am. No,
I
ma'am.
know.
I was wearing
Absolutely.
a romper in the 70s, but I think just this understanding that we all have value, right? We all bring value. We all want to be valued, and just be curious about people.
Yeah.
I think that's what when my son, who's not going to enter the workplace for a while, but that I hope that that's the thing
Yeah.
that and by the way, he is hilarious.
Is he going towards the arts or the corporate environment?
My husband's an actuary.
Okay.
So my husband is a math geek. And I am the opposite. I actually failed math twice in high school. And so our son is the perfect blend of the
So
two of us.
funny.
And I don't know what he's going to do.
How fun is that?
But I think he has a quick wit and an analytical mind. And I'm like, well, then there's no stopping this kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But I will also say that he's a great communicator. And to me, I don't care what is happening with technology.
Yeah.
People who can talk to other people are
Yeah.
going to be in demand.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. Learning how to communicate differently. Like at the end of my keynotes, I used to ask, does anyone have any questions or answers for me? Sort of cute, funny, whatever.
I
But
like
now
that.
I ask, what are you going to implement into your day-to-day routines? Instead of those, do you have any answers? How are you going to use what we actually talked about? And I found that has made all the difference. And it's just one line of communication, so different. And then people just start screaming stuff out. Whereas before, does anyone have any questions? It would always be
Nope.
nope. Or they'd come up to me after the show and like whisper, what do you think about this? So communication is so relevant in all this. And it can just be one word or one saying, or, just asking someone a smile, like you said at the beginning of this. So it's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah. I love all this. It's so pertinent to where we are, with everything going on in the world. I think
Yeah.
it's so important, and that people are at their jobs for 8 hours a day. So you
At
got to make
least.
it at least.
Right.
Exactly. So you want to make it an environment where they can be themselves and be playful. And, that's going to lead to innovation and discovering things.
Yeah, I mean, humor in the workplace or in life is a competitive advantage, and people who can master it
Yeah.
um, will do really well. And if they can't master it on their own, well, then thank goodness there are people like you and me who can help them.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So look, we always end humor in the C-suite. I always ask, what is the funniest thing that's ever happened to you? Do you have a funny story?
I do. I actually tell this story on stage.
Oh, I'm excited.
Again, because I like to show that
Yeah.
although I take what I do seriously, I do not take myself very seriously. So, yeah, as you know, in comedy, sometimes your stories are real and sometimes they're not real and sometimes
Yeah.
it's something in between, right? What I'm about ready to say is 100% true.
Okay. You heard
Okay.
it, audience. 100% true.
So I went shopping for jeans.
Okay.
Okay. And I went to one of those fancy boutique places. So the jeans aren't like hanging up. They're like folded up nicely, neatly on a shelf. So I'm going through the jeans and I'm looking for the sizes and I see, the twos and the fours, which is how we size things. I don't know how you guys
Yeah.
size things,
Same
but
thing.
twos. So I was looking at the twos and the fours, and this cute little sales clerk walks by and she's like, "Hey, can I help you?" And I was like, "Yes." I'm looking, where are your bigger sizes? I'm not a 2 or 4. I'm probably divisible by 2 or 4. So where do you keep your bigger sizes? And she said, "Oh, well, we just keep those down below." And I was like, "Okay." So I went to the second shelf and I'm looking, and I see the 6s and the 8s, right?
Yeah.
And still no. And she comes back by and I was like, "Yeah, excuse, sweetheart, I'm going to need you to go to the basement." And she was like, "What?" It's like, these are still small sizes. I think if you keep the bigger sizes down below, I think you need to go to the basement. And
Yeah.
so she did. And she brought all the jeans that they had in my size. And so I took both of them to the dressing room. But that is,
Yes.
I mean, to be able to, like, in that moment,
Yeah.
I was like, still
Nope.
no, still
No.
no.
We have a few stores that are just one size stores. And I'm like, I just like Brandy Melville. Do you have that there?
Oh,
It's
not,
like one
not really.
size.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just so crazy to me. I love that story. So funny. Can you go to the basement,
Yeah,
please?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
need you to go to the basement. I mean, that is a real life example of humor to, like,
Diffuse an awkward
yeah,
situation.
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I can laugh about
Absolutely.
it or I can cry about it, right?
Yeah.
I decided
Absolutely.
I'm just gonna laugh about it.
Booties are in, baby. Booties are
Booties
in.
are in.
Yeah. Yeah, they
And when
are.
muffin tops become, in, then I'm gonna decide
Golden.
I'm going to be right where I need to be.
That's when I start wearing my low-rise jeans again. My low-rise with the one or two buttons that are like this big. It's like, no, that's not going to cover anything.
A lot of muffins were sacrificed to get that muffin top.
Exactly.
Gonna honor it.
Oh my gosh. Heather, thank you so much for taking the time today. I so appreciate your perspective. I find it so unique because you do come from the business world and ended up being a comedian. And I think it's so great for people to hear that and know that, it's know your audience, all these things that you've learned, the listening, the communication. It's just so relevant in today's work. And I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. It has been a real joy. I could talk about this all day long. So
I love it.